There we go. Okay, so just to make sure we're on the same playing field, the intent of this meeting, I don't see Chief Strickland here. Can somebody give him a buzz? And
I can.
okay. Or not Chief, Lieutenant Strickland, sorry. The intent of this meeting is for the department heads to present to the council their requested budgets for their departments, to go and discuss the details of their budgets, the reasoning for their funds that they are requesting, the logic behind it, what they hope to accomplish with it, and to show the council kind of where we are. I will tell you that these are not final budgets. This is the first presentation. There is fine tuning left to do. But I also, that being said, I do think that we are close. After this meeting, we will have another meeting in which I will present to the council a request to change the way that we, or the percentage that the village contributes to para. If depending upon how the council decides to go with that, it will impact all of these budgets. So just know that, again, this is not the final budget, but this is to kind of give you an idea of where we're coming from and why we're asking to spend the money that we are asking to spend. Just also be aware that we've already done one internal round. So the original budgets were presented to myself and Heather McPeak. We went over them with each of the department heads, made recommendations, asked them to make some changes for this preliminary hearing. And then based on your feedback and where we are in the budget, again, there will be additional changes, and somewhere around May the 30th, in approximately a week or so, we will do a final public hearing. By the way, this is a public hearing, and because of that, Mr. Mayor, you should freely recognize members of the public without any time limitations, unless things get out of control, then you'll have to take it back. We do have no more than 3 hours to make it through, and we have a lot of material to cover. So we'll just go ahead and start at the top here. I guess we can start with Shay, the community center budget.
Okay.
If you're ready.
I'm ready. Are you gonna?
I'm gonna load it.
Okay, because all my comments and things are in that.
By the way, Heather will be here in just a moment, and she did because the way the program works, this is new for us to use this year. What you'll see is in the budget screen, there are several different columns that the managers were allowed, or data that they were given to help them make their projections. You can see we have actuals for fiscal year 22. We have the budget for 22-23. And then actuals for 22-23, the budget for 24, year-to-date actuals for 24. So these aren't a full, this 23-24 year-to-date activity. These are the actuals really as of the end of April. There may be some May numbers in some places, but for the most part, this does not include May numbers. And so the numbers they're not complete, they're not finalized, but it does kind of let the department head know where they are. This projection is what the system is projecting the final numbers will be just based on prior budgets and activity. So it's just an educated guess, it's a projection, but there is some logic behind it that's done by the system, not done by people, but done by the system. And then this 24-25 budget is basically what we did is we took the 24 budget, and because we have an average PMI of 3.5% for this year, we added 3.5% to last year's budget to give them an idea so they could see, with inflation and nothing else, kind of what the budget projection would be. Then you will see, if I scroll over here, you'll see that this column here called 24-25 budget request, this is the actual numbers that the department head entered for this presentation. And then this department request column represents the very first request, the one where, you know, I call it, kind of refer to it as a dream request, which is forget about revenue, you know, if you had your druthers, what would you want? That's the department request. And then this final one is a village manager request, which I haven't utilized yet, but the last round, I will go through and make adjustments where necessary to this round in that final. So that'll represent the final budget, this village manager, and I haven't taken any action in that column yet. But the one we're going to focus on today is this 24-25 budget request column. You'll see these red corners in the box. Those represent comments that the staff person made to try and justify or describe why they want that money. These comments, by the way, are being printed and will be made available to you. We thought we'd have them right now, but in the next few minutes, hopefully they'll be presented, they'll be given to you, so you'll have them to review. And then many of our department heads are going to present paper to you that you can take back as well. By the way, in the final budget meeting, we're going to ask you to all bring your computers, because I know that this screen can be a challenge for people to see. And the next one, we didn't have time to get it set up for this one, but in the next one you'll all zoom into the meeting and you'll be able to look at your computer screen and see what I'm seeing. Because right now I'm showing you my computer screen. So I've opened up the budget for the community center. And at this point, if there are any other questions, I'm going to turn the floor over to Shay. And again, this is an interactive session. You and the public should interact with Shay and ask her whatever questions you may have.
Good afternoon. I wish that the comments were printed because I don't have a copy of my comments. Is there a way to open them up?
Yes. Well, I would just have to mouse over them, I think, at this point.
Okay. Then if you don't mind doing that, because
Sure, just tell me.
I didn't write them all down, I just had it in there and I had trouble printing it, so. Okay, so for that, it's the repair, maintenance, ground. Is that for the fields? See, this is a budget for the fields, the trails, and the community center.
This is?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's named CC, so.
Anytime it's the 4003 is the Allen Fields, and the 4007 is the community center.
Okay, so we're looking, if you see over here under the account number.
Yes.
This middle group of numbers is the department. That's what we use to identify the departments. So this 4003 is the ballpark, right?
Correct, yes. So if you scroll over and the first ones are all for the ballpark. And if you scroll over to the budget, what I requested, and in the comments, it can kind of just explain it to you, why I requested that much. For the turf, warning track maintenance, the turf is always needing to be maintained. I just had it maintained recently, and had it tested and everything. So most of that is going to be for the warning track around the turf. That hasn't had anything done to it since the fields have opened. So I'm in the process of trying to speak to the company that does our fields recently to see what we can do. It gets a lot of weeds. To get the weeds out, we've had to, grade it and scrape it, and it's kind of lost its base course. And so I'm gonna talk to them about other options and what we can do so it doesn't get all muddy and everything. It's still in good shape, but it definitely needs some work. The fields were how old are they? 11 years old, 12 years old now, I think. So that's what part of that is for, plus the maintaining of the turf. I think we need some new equipment also, because it's just gotten old, same thing. I'm gonna get recommendations from the company and see what they think for the...
Like, are you talking like soccer goals and?
The soccer goals are actually new. The equipment, I mean, is for maintaining the field, the equipment like the grader and the thing that we, I can't think of the technical terms, but that we clear the field with and we move the pellets around and yeah, all of that equipment. It still works, but it's getting pretty old, so. What else is on there, Brett? Can you go back up to that?
Oh, you want to go?
Yeah, up to the top again, just to make sure I'm not missing one more up.
Well, oh,
Yeah.
for that 75.
Yes. Oh, and that's why it's so much too. Also, for the lights and the pavilion getting built out there, there's some grants out there that we'd like to go for. And that amount would be a matching for the village. So it's hard, that's kind of a rough amount, a guesstimate, because there's a grant that we're specifically looking at. It would have a trail go up to the rec center, or to the Allen Fields. And because there's a trail going up there, this particular grant, they've also put bathrooms in, pavilions in, all sorts of things like that. So I'm still checking into that, and that doesn't open up till July 1st. So it's just kind of a guesstimate on what we would do. But that's why that number's so high, is for, yeah, there we go. It's for all those things that I just mentioned.
How much is the grant for?
It's hard to say, it can go all the, yeah. We're gonna, I've been working with Julie with it, and we're gonna, of course, go try to get bathrooms and a pavilion out of it, so.
But what you're proposing is the matching portion up to,
Yes, I'm kind of guesstimating on that amount. And so the next one, other contractual services for the Allen Fields again. That is pretty much what it says right there for the prairie dog gas pellets, the porta potties. That's really it. That's mainly what it's for, those sort of things. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I've got it now.
Okay.
Okay, and the next one is, again, for the Allen Fields. And that amount is for signage and just other supplies as needed. Because I'm gonna put some more signage out there about what's allowed and what's not allowed on the fields, and try to get people to keep the gates closed. And we might start having to actually start locking it up. And down at the bottom, we have a chain. I've been wanting to put a gate up there too. So that's what that's for. And then, what's the next one? Okay, again, for the Allen Fields, yes. Again, it's just the same thing, signage and other supplies, they kind of go together. Like if I ended up getting the gate instead of having a chain across there and things like that. Special events is tournaments, soccer. We don't really need that much. I usually don't even spend that because I outsource everything. I don't really put anything on myself, so that's what that is. That's kind of there in case we need it for a special event.
Will the lighting allow us to do more tournaments and events and those types of things?
It will, yes, definitely. Like, for example, the softball tournaments I do, the weather can be really hit and miss up there also, and there's many times where we have to stop early, you know, it gets dark quicker, and so the lighting does offer more opportunity. The more facilities we get out there, the more people will want to come here, you know, to the mountains to use the facilities. So yes, the lighting definitely will make a difference.
This
there any
next
other
one
questions
is
for it?
payroll.
Okay,
This one right here.
yes, so now, I guess we're on to payroll. I'm asking for increases, pretty much to all the positions, based on more responsibilities, certifications, increase in minimum wage. It keeps going up, so that's mainly for the student in position. And, yeah, that's it for those. If you want more explanation, I can give that to you.
So the one thing I'll say here, since it's the first one, and this is gonna be true of everything you're gonna see. This amount is an estimate that's made on the raises we'd like to give to our staff. If the council chooses to go with an expanded role for para, these numbers will have to come down, but the money, it's gonna be similar money. It's just that it's gonna come out of this column and down here to this para column. So what will be presented to the council is 2 options on raises for the year. And those options are gonna affect how much of the money is either here or is down here in para. Really, a third option is to not do anything with para and to leave it like this, like Shay asked. So the council could choose not to address para, and then if you choose to address para, there'll be 2 options presented. We'll go into that in more detail. But just know that depending upon which option you choose, this number could go down and the para go up, but the net amount is gonna be approximately the same.
And I don't want to derail too much here, but are we looking at the same para change department to department? In other words, are we going to have one para policy for all employees, or are we going to need that on a department by department
It's
basis?
not department, it's para plan by para plan. We have 3 para plans.
Okay,
And you will be asked to make a decision for each para plan.
One's
Fire, police, in general.
okay.
Okay, yep, and the next, so then part-time, that is my one part-time position, and then also, like I said, the student, it's the same reasons. The temporary employees is pretty much just my day camp. Hoping to, and then the empowering youth reimbursement, which I'm not sure where we're at with that. That was, they started doing planting bulbs up at the community center. And it was through the beautification committee, but I'm not sure where we're at with that. And I think you took it over, or, yeah.
There is money available.
Yeah, so that's what, I was told to budget that, and that was for the employee who was gonna be maintaining and planted the bulbs, and right now they came up, but I don't know where we're at with that, but that's what 4,000 of that's for. And then for my day camp, hopefully I have it. We have so many people calling in about it. I interviewed someone today for the supervisor position, but I haven't gotten anybody for the assistant yet. So fingers crossed with that. But that's what the temporary employee salary is.
So let's jump on to, I don't think we need to hit every one of these, but let's go
Yeah.
to this one.
Okay, which one is that?
5401.
Yeah. Does it say what, let me, because it doesn't have the
is-
numbers on here.
New
floor,
floors.
okay, I'm on the right one. That's, my wish list is for new floors at the community center, which it definitely needs. we're constantly replacing tiles and they're cracking and, you know, the building was built back in what, 1998, 93, I can't remember which one. And it has the original flooring in it and it's used a lot, so.
What kind of flooring would you like to see in there?
I'm still kind of researching it. I was thinking wood would be nice, but then I've talked to a few people and they don't recommend wood, so I'm still kind of researching what the best option I think would be. With the heated flooring, I find that the tiles, they popped up some, and I don't know if it wasn't done right originally or what, you know, was going on with it, but I'm kind of leaning towards something more like wood, just because it doesn't seem to be, I don't know anything about it, but it doesn't seem like it would be as much of an issue.
Traditional gym floor?
Mm-hmm, something similar to that. But there's so many different things out there now that, yeah. But that's what that one is for. And hopefully, again, there's hoping to get matching grants, because there are quite a few grants out there right now that are helpful for community centers and outdoor recreation and things like that. So we try, and we're starting to get a little more reception, so. And then,
Next is 109.
okay, that's the one that I had to add to. Previously, what did I ask? I asked for less than that, but I can't remember. See, it was the new trail and signage on the trail with a matching grant. And then the playground, that's what I just had to add actually today. Playground construction costs from this fiscal year, the one that we just approved for them to start, they don't start till June 15th. So obviously I can't pay them within this fiscal year. So I plopped that amount over to this next one.
So it's just a rollover
From that, yeah. And then the other is the new trail. And what I did, how much was it that I had to, 79,724 is what is for the playground. So the rest was what I put for the new trail. With a matching grant, which I think we have a good chance at getting.
And that trail would go from where to where?
It was actually one that we had started back for a while. Yeah, you probably remember. It goes right back here behind the building and it goes up to the fence there. And then, you know, the other way, if you go that way, that's where the resort trail takes over. It's resort, or not resort, AFPO. So ours, we go up to the fence, we would keep going. And we had already had it GPSed out and everything. You keep going along the easement, yes, along the easement, all the way up to the trail and eventually up to the school. Right now, we're just up to the rec center. Right now, we're looking at going right up to the rec center. So.
The next one, other contractual services. So it's pest control.
Oh, okay, that's for the community center. It's pretty much the same as like Allen Fields, except for different services. Pest control, I've had the engineer come out of that one before. TLC Plumbing, they come and they do a lot of our services and things. Any contractual that I have with them, I take it out of there. Like TLC Plumbing, they do our HVAC system every 6 months and the boiler every 6 months. There's a lot of, we have a kitchen inspection, the hood, a lot of inspections and stuff that we have come out and they, just to keep the center legal.
So then, the next one, Shay, this supplies, non-capital, furniture, fixture, and equipment. I guess I'm just curious about, we got 6,000 here, and it looks like maybe 2,000 is the most you ever spent. Last year you didn't spend any. Is that an area that you really need that this year, or is that a holding?
I don't see that I even made comments on that, so.
You didn't make any comments on it? That's what I was curious about.
What it's been before was, you know, I put sinks in, things like that. I don't think that I need that this year. If I get other things, I have enough that I can work on for that.
Okay, so I would recommend you withdraw that from the budget.
Okay, yeah, usually I put a
We're gonna
comment.
jump down to this one, building and structures.
Okay. Yep, again, playground, that, I split it between the two, so that's the additional half for the cost of the playground from this year. That has to roll over. And it was the same amount, 79,724. And then the other one is a shed at the center and like benches for the new, excuse me, benches for the new trail that we get and existing trails and anything like that.
And so Shay split this up, just so y'all know, because part of the money is gonna go to physical structures and should be accounting as structures, because it would be capitalized. And part of it's gonna go to services, and services, depending upon how they're used, may not be capitalized. But that's why part went here and part went up there.
And it was done the same in this budget, you just won't get to use it.
That's what I was looking for.
Any other questions on community center?
I would ask, could we get printouts, since we don't have them on email?
Yeah.
We really need to have it in front of us.
I was gonna say, I get,
can't see
it's
any
all
of it.
glare up here off of the cars outside, so I can't see that screen at all.
We'll take our time.
Who's- Jeremy,
Mine is tiny,
do you
that's what
have
I-
printouts? For your
If
presentation?
anybody doesn't, let's
I
take
don't have
a
printouts of
moment.
this. I have my own presentation paperwork I can work off of.
Or copies.
But you don't wanna work off of.
And when I printed it, it was tiny and I tried, so this I don't think would help you because it's,
I don't really need that per se.
Okay,
I'm just saying we do.
well then, so you're done, Shay?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
I remember 6 years or so ago, the council had a discussion about the floor. And I thought it moved forward, but evidently it didn't, because the floor is in really bad shape.
It is, it didn't
We
move
didn't,
forward.
we didn't budget any money or anything for it like that.
No, and also, I've also included it, excuse me, I've had a tickle all day.
It's the door.
In the ICIP, it's on the ICIP now too.
Mhm.
That way, I'm hoping to be able to apply for grants and money,
Right, right.
So yes, it kind of stalled out, and now I'm trying to bring it back
I
in.
was wondering what happened to it, because I remember us discussing that.
Yes,
way
it's
back there.
been there for a while, I
Yeah, and it needs to be done.
agree, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeremy, since you've got your own, you're up next.
I know. Well, that was Ernie calling.
Could I ask Shay one more question? Sure. Does the property for Allen Field go all the way to 434? No?
No,
Okay.
It doesn't go to, except for the road, it doesn't go to Camino Grande either.
Oh, okay. The only reason.
I don't know exactly, but I know it doesn't, yeah.
Yeah. The only reason I was asking that is, I was thinking maybe at some point in time we could put a sign up near the road. Advertising Allen Field. And the only reason I say that, those of us who've been here a while, we know what we're talking about when we talk about Allen Field, but I've been in discussions and I mentioned it and people say, well, where is this Allen Field?
Yeah,
You know, and.
there's a little sign, but it's just the
Yeah.
highway one, yeah.
And I'm sure we could work something out with the resort to get permission to put a sign.
Oh, the resort owns it, okay.
Yeah.
That would be it, especially if we're going to try to promote that more, a sign closer to the road would be nice, I think. If there's any way to work that out.
I agree, I did put money in that budget for signage for lots of different places that I think, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shay.
Thank you.
All right, I guess if you want to go ahead and pull up the project for the PD.
I got it right here.
Oh, Mayor, Councilman, Clerk Rowe, Village Manager, I'm here to present basically a salary proposal and budget proposal for years 24, 25. If you look at the head of my sheet, I guess I was a little earnest. I put 25, 26, I'm looking a little too far ahead. But, at the first line item, we have in custody care. That doesn't really change a whole lot. That line right there really is for, I believe, the court's budget. Our in custody care is further down. So really we start with full-time employees. That's what this proposal packet that I have is basically about. If you'll see, I have attached on the front a new pay scale that we have devised. But basically when Lewis got here, he had started the preliminary grounds for looking at a new pay scale. The current one we have for the village just does not suit the police department, the needs of the police department, the career objectives of an officer.
I want to interject and say our current pay plan, pay schedule doesn't suit anybody.
Good point.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. So he did some good things with last year's budget. He got us new laptops, he got us new body armor, he outfitted the vehicles with stands that allow for our workstations to move into the units. New decals, new badges, kind of a rebranding of the police department. This year, as you're aware, the pay for police officers is changing rapidly in the state of New Mexico. We have a lot of competition now as far as officers, and the pool is getting ever smaller with those who want to be officers or those who are certified. So we're all fighting for a limited pool that's ever getting smaller. Our officers are in need of substantial raises to combat or at least to complement what is happening in the state. The state of New Mexico, I put it there on page 2, lower portion. That is their new pay raise as of 2025. Their starting patrolmen's out of the academy is at 37. Our top tier patrolman is 35.50. So I know we're not going to be able to meet or match this, but we definitely need to do some work to at least get in some kind of a ballpark range. The officers, they can live here and work here with state police. They'll hire them immediately. And at their pay, they'll go to $44.16 with their lateral in. So I'm trying to help with incentive pay. That's part of what's on that pay scale there. There's a couple things I'm looking at to try and become competitive. One thing is longevity pay. I want to implement that. That starts at 6 years. It's a 2% increase for an officer. It'll be 2% for 5 years, and then after 5 years, it'll go up 2% more and continue on as long as they stay with us. That's not something that state police does, and so maybe it would help at least keep some officers in-house. The other thing is, and state police does it as well, is for physical fitness, they give an hour for 3 days a week to go and work out. I want to do the same. I've talked with the owner of the gym here, Lisa Sutton. She has agreed for a flat payment for our officers to use that facility. It's only $1,000. That's an easy thing that we can do.
A year.
A year. Yeah. Couple other things, incentive-wise, I want to pay for certs. So if you go to the 5th page, there's a graph with LE certification. That's what I want to do to help our department as far as if you have a certified officer in other fields besides just the mandatory, they're more likely to be a better officer for the department. It helps the department grow. You're able to provide training to your officers in-house instead of them having to reschedule or cover for people that are missing or gone. It also helps with any future endeavors. If we want to host training, we can have companies come here and our officers can train, and the other agencies will come here as well. If you have a week training, they're here for a week. They're also in the village. They may be staying at the resort. You do presentations at the resort. It's a good opportunity to really display what the Village of Angel Fire has to offer, and then it's also nationwide. The other thing that I want to implement besides that is the education pay and then the LEA certification. LEA certification, you have advanced training that you meet to get those certifications, and we would pay for those as well. If you go back to the pay scale, you'll see that there's levels, there's steps, and then there's grades. The steps will implement a 2-year step plan. So the individual comes in, you have your probationary column, which an individual, when they come in, if they're uncertified officer, they'll come in at $29.79. That will beat state police. Currently they're at like 27. That individual will have a year to either get certified or he will be asked to leave. He has a year to move to certified officer, which at what point he will be 33.27, and then off probation and certified he'll be 34.48. That will be about $3.50 less than what state police has right now. That gets us into a ballpark. The top tier would be $39.76. That's close to within $4 of their top tier. I think that's doable, and I think our officers deserve it. I have created a sergeant line as well. We don't have a sergeant, but in the event that we continue to grow, a sergeant line is needed. Then you have lieutenant and chief. I will note that in looking at the drastic changes, you have Bernalillo now has increased by 10%. They've approved it. They will be the highest paid officer in New Mexico at $41 starting. They also have they pay everything up to 4% of a officer's para.
I'm sorry, how much?
Up to 4%. An officer only pays 4% in that agency. So what I'm looking at for our para is to move to, if we pay 75% of para, which we are allowed to do, we'll be at 4.82%. And it's all in that paperwork for you to peruse. I'm not going line by line just to save time.
Jeremy,
Yes.
how come Bernalillo is different than us? The statute applies to everybody.
Unless they are, it may not be the village funding it, it may be the department itself budgeting it. I don't know, but that's what they have advertised on their website. That's the only thing I could think of, was that the department was somehow funding it as well, I don't know.
Yeah, no, they can. Okay.
Yeah. Unless it is 4.8 like us, and we would go 2, and then they're just saying 4.
Yeah, it's gotta be limited. They're misstating it,
Maybe.
because we've done the numbers on this one.
Right.
They are.
And I believe Colfax, you're on that, right?
Yes,
Colfax is at 4.8%.
yes.
So to meet and match the departments, that's what, for para, that's what most departments have moved to. APD is doing the same thing. Rio Rancho, I believe, is the same way. So, to be competitive, I believe we need to do 75% for our officers. So overall, looking at, and I can foot stomp all these numbers, that there's plenty of data to show it. Policing in general is getting expensive in New Mexico. There's a number of reasons why, but I think it was said best by the Albuquerque Police Department's Officer Association, Sean Willoughby. He says, I think the next generation of police officers are thinking it's not worth it. They see what's on the news, they see the kind of scrutiny that this profession is under, and how unpopular policing has become. That's it. People don't want to be a police officer in this type of atmosphere. And to combat that, they're having to pay more. And we're just gonna have to follow suit in order to fill our positions. The chief pay, even at this top tier that I have on the village pay scale, is sergeant pay with state police. That's it. So, policing is gonna, the police department is gonna need some funding to try and match this. So what I've done is I've gone through, I've put this pay scale together, and in through here, I've tried to cut down on some things. Other things are gonna hopefully wash through. We have the overtime fund. What I'm doing to try and combat how high overtime will be is we're gonna move to an 86-hour pay period. That'll be 3 hours a week. So an officer will work 3 extra hours a week before he gets overtime. That is allowed by FLSA rules. So that will help with the overtime fund, bringing it to about 40,000.
What is the maximum allowed? Is that the
That
maximum
is the
allowed?
maximum allowed for police officers, yeah.
Real quick, Jeremy, when you're looking at this report, gentlemen, the additional officer column, Jeremy has a column that other budgeters didn't have, other department heads didn't have because of some things we did playing with numbers and whatnot, but that's the one that Jeremy is.
I'm sorry, yeah, that's what I'm moving off of. The 730 was with 7. We tried to budget for 7. We want 7 officers. We need 7 officers, but that's not gonna happen. I don't believe we can fund it. So I pulled that off the table for now to try and push it next year. We still have an open 6 position. Once I can get that filled and someone's in there, that's when I can really push for the 7. So the additional officer column should have been renamed, but it's for 6 officers. And so as you see, the overall budget is 1.328. I can make that work, and I can make all these incentives work. And we would be competitive across the state with that funding. If you look at the fiscal year 23-24, what's current, we have $1,027,000. I believe that's with, is that with the recent bars that I put in, or without?
That should be with.
Should with? Okay. So,
And we got 2 months left.
so,
This doesn't include May or June.
okay. So we're looking at probably 1.2 by the end of this year. So the increase is looking to be at about 10-12% is what I'm asking for the next year.
And that's based on the new pay scale you're proposing?
Yes. Yeah. And to be honest, I've budgeted for 4 level 6, just to make sure. I did hire an individual, he's gonna be at level 2, so we will have about 10 grand.
Yeah, but we don't know who that 6th person was.
6 person, we don't know, yeah, 6 person could be a 5, but one of them is a step 2,
So,
or step 1.
does this reflect any changes to the current para contributions? Or is
Yes.
this based,
This would have the para contribution
These-
75%.
this is based on change in the para contribution?
This is actually 50%. It's 181 with 75%. I think you got
Oh, yes, yes, yes,
167.
I'm sorry, yeah, para would be 50%.
It might go up another
It'd be
30 to
190.
$40,000 if we go 75% versus 50% on para. This number is 50%. The challenge was, and the reason I asked Jeremy to make it 50% is, I don't disagree with what he's asking for. Everything he told you is exactly right. The challenge is, do we have the money, right? I mean, we can build a plan all day long to be competitive, but if we don't have the money, we don't have the money.
And one thing I still want to address too, that we had looked at with Chief Lewis, so obviously addressing the para, but another big one in the police department is the on-call pay.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at what you have budgeted there, and I assume that that's at 100%?
So, yes, that is at 100%. The idea with 6 officers is I can bring that down. On-call hours would drop about 40%.
By adding the 6th officer, filling that position.
Correct. Currently, we're at 65,000, give or take.
So, and then my question then, I don't know, I mean, I'm sure you've looked at it, but if, with the 7th officer that you feel like we need, what would that do to overtime and on-call pay?
It would almost cut on-call completely.
But what about overtime?
Overtime, it would not change a whole lot. Overtime, so what we bill for really in overtime is your court appearances, special events, and I know that we now can budget
Pull money out of lodger's tax for
out
special
of lodger's
events.
tax. For Balloon Fiesta, I'm gonna do that. Hopefully, that'll be the first time. I'm gonna test it and see how it works. But you have your special events, your call outs in the middle of the night. If someone gets called out, I mean, there's things you can't really plan for.
Would you say the biggest though is the court appearances?
That's like almost guaranteed.
Right.
Tom goes to court a lot. I go to court about half as much. Yeah, that's.
When you say Tom Hicks,
Hicks, correct. No. So 40 grand I think would be more than enough. The big challenge, I had 65,000 give or take and that we used this year. The big challenge was really scheduling and covering all the absences that we've had.
I understand, and I also understand though too, I mean, if we're looking at raises and increasing the para contribution, I would like to look at the on-call pay, only because from what I understand from talking to Chief Lewis is that we're the only department that even, that pays anywhere near 100% for on-call pay. And I mean, if there's any justification for that from you, I'd like to
Sure.
understand it better.
So my understanding of the FLSA is you have, there's 2 categories of on-call. There's waiting to be called and on-call waiting to be called out. And there's a better term for it, I can't remember the words right now, but let me explain it. You have an individual, like with me for state police, I got 5% increase on my pay to be ready to have my phone with me, right? So I could be in Albuquerque, I could be anywhere, and I had to answer the phone. That was the stipulation. I would get a call, hey, we have a crime scene up in Taos, we need you to be at. It's like, well, Sarge, I'm in Albuquerque. It's gonna take me 6 hours to get there. And then he would have to make a decision on whether or not I can go or not, right? On-call for our officers is they're waiting for the radio call to go. Meaning, if they get a call, they're responding within 15 to 20 minutes. A shooting, something happening, an assault, a DV, that's what we're paying our officers for.
And that's when there's not an officer, because currently, are you?
Right. That's when an officer is not on.
And
Right.
right now, you're staffing from 7 AM to 2 AM?
Correct.
Okay, and so
Yes.
the on-call is typically between that 2 and 7?
2 and 7, so someone has that radio on in case they get called to go and they're going. So this other category is also like them taking their office home with them. Our units are our office. And so because of that, they're supposed to be, not prorated, but compensated hour to hour for those hours that they're on call. And that was the justification. And Brad, or the previous police chief, McCaslin, said that that's where they implemented it, was because of that.
And so then, so you said state police, you had a 5% pay increase to
Correct.
agree to keep that at all times.
Well, it was, yes, but I couldn't respond like immediately, right? And that's the difference. The more caveats you put on an officer, that's what changes that category. So he's not allowed to drink, he's not allowed to leave the valley, you know, he can't go do anything with his family. Those extra things put him basically at work.
But, Mr. Mayor, I will say that there are other agencies within the state of New Mexico that have the same requirement of their officers and don't pay them the same. To my knowledge, we are the only agency that pays 100% of your hourly wage when you're in that status of on-call. And we're not the only one that provide that or require that status of on-call. So the reason, just the history on that is it was brought up in this last administration. It stemmed from a recommendation from the legal counsel, and it was a big hubbub at the state police about it, and he advised the mayor to go that route, and thinking that they might be sued. To my knowledge, nobody ever got sued over it. There was never any big legal action, and it's based on a legal opinion of our legal counsel, and trying to avoid the village from being sued. But again, to my knowledge, nobody else adopted that, and no other agency adopted that, and I'm not also aware of any pending litigation related to it.
So I'm gonna ask a question, I apologize. With the glare coming off that car out there, I can't see anything on that screen. So, it sounds like though there may be a break-even point here. If we had enough officers to not have to do the on-call,
Yes.
that by having a 6th or a 7th, I can't see the
I
numbers.
think you're budgeting $40,000 in on-call pay.
Currently, correct. Now, when I get 6
Currently, or
officers,
For the next
Current.
fiscal year.
that would be for this coming fiscal year.
You wouldn't get them.
With 6 officers, I can cut the number of on-call hours down to 2 hours a day, or 3 hours a day instead of 5 hours a day. From 4 to 7 is when we would have someone on.
And at the 7th officer, it goes away completely.
Yes, we would be able to move that out, correct.
So I would be careful of saying completely, because there's gonna be circumstances,
Yes,
you have
Out of
multiple
country.
officers out for whatever reason, and you might need to have that. You have somebody scheduled for court,
Vacation.
you have transports or whatever. I mean, there may be situations in which it's still required, but it'd be minimized.
Yeah.
correct.
And you're currently, what is the staffing currently? I know there's an open chief position.
Open chief position, so Lieutenant Hicks, Merles, and then the new officer May, we have an open 6 position.
So
we
the new
have-
officer May just replaced Travis,
Correct. Yes, sir.
so we really just,
Swapped. Right. The challenge will be to fill that 6th one. It's always been a challenge. It's been hard to keep the 5th one filled in the past 2 years that I've been here. But I'm willing to work where I can obviously, I mean, if on-call is something that we can work on, I'm open to it.
I think we just need to look at between
But-
raises, para, and on-call, I think there's some,
Sure.
some room.
Okay, and I'm open to it, absolutely. But I do, you know, I'm fighting for my officers to get that, if they can get their pay up, then,
So the para, again, for anybody that'll help, it's not a raise, but I'll give our contribution, that's just more in your take-home pay.
yes, sir,
It'll feel like a raise.
it will, yes, sir. The idea is, you know, a lot of officers, when they are hiring on right now, they're looking at take-home pay. So, I mean, Gen Zs, it's about,
It's over there too. You can see it on the wall behind you.
Yeah, right in my eyes.
Is that,
Hey T, can we
Whoever
get you to
parked
move
right
your
there.
vehicle? It's causing glare.
I think it's that brown one, that tan one.
it's, the tan one's
It's the
that's
tan, it's the
Casey.
tan one.
Yeah.
Teague, it's not
the
yours.
Fire chiefs.
It's not yours.
I think it's mine. Well, I didn't know, I apologize.
Oh, how could you?
Well,
That's good, just stand right there.
No, it's just, I feel bad, I'm not trying to not look at you, but I'm just getting smacked here. She'll move and somebody will park right there.
What we're talking, oh, so in fighting for their raises, like I wanna make sure that they understand that all of this is costing a lot. It has been mentioned in the past, you know, we give up, you know, we get a raise here, and then we get this taken away, we get this here and this taken away, so, I understand 100% is a lot, so if we went to like 50% or something like that, that is definitely something that they should be able to understand.
Yeah, we definitely want, we understand too. I just wanted, and I don't know, Manager, Ware, if you have the numbers. Obviously, we're looking at 24, 25. You think for 23, 24, we're gonna end somewhere around 1.2? And then what was 22, 23?
It was significantly less, it was about 800,000.
Yeah, so we got, and there was a huge jump last year. And so with that in mind, we just, yeah.
Right.
And to be fair, Mr. Mayor, some of that jump is related to capital asset acquisition. So, like new vehicles and things like that that may have been purchased in the current year that weren't purchased in the prior year. So it's not all payroll, I just want to make sure that's clear.
It's not. I think
But there was a big jump in payroll.
last year, or the,
From last year to this year, there was, it's probably gonna be,
but we understand.
you know,
We understand how competitive it is.
total payroll cost close to a little less than 40%.
Just so I'll understand the para contributions, because I've heard more of it in relation to what Chief Teague, I'm sure, will present here in a little bit, with the rules changing for fire and EMS being able to come out of retirement. It sounds like the police is gonna be optimizing the para differently than what the fire side is going to. Is that fair? Are you?
When you say optimizing, you're.
So, in other words, I think that some of the people we might look to backfill at the fire department, and you correct me if I'm wrong, are newly eligible with the retirement setup that was changed. So some of the hiring on the fire department side is going to be firefighters, EMS at the end of their career coming back. Whereas, as you mentioned, the take-home pay is really what's most important, particularly for
Yes.
new officers out of the
But that's
academy.
also a big factor for the fire department as well.
Well,
He just gets 2, or Jeremy's getting 1. Is that fair? Benefits to the para contribution?
Yeah,
In other words, that program isn't available to police.
Okay, so
Right.
the program that is newly, that is fire only,
yes,
okay.
yeah.
And how about, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong column. It's less than a 30% jump in payroll. I don't know
And
the
again, I
exact number.
understand the,
I said too high.
The As far as para, the change for us would be definitely for your hirees, but also for your late, career police as well. Because take home is gonna be important to both of them. I wouldn't say that one's gonna be, more beneficial than the other in the long run. They're both 3%, in this 25-year plan, the tier 2. It's a 3% para, like state police gets. And really, theirs is probably better because they have a 9% and it's flat and it's never changing. Because they're fully funded. But yeah, ours is changing in the next 2 years, going up 0.5% on both sides. Yeah.
And just to be further clear, Mr. Mayor, the number we said 1.2, I mean, that would be on the high end. It's probably gonna come in closer to 1.1
What's that?
for current year expenditures when you're all said and done.
1.1?
Because we have 2 more months to go.
The reason I said 1.2 is if you take 2 months divided by 10, you have 20%.
And that's what I'm seeing, we're looking at a 20% increase over last year at the 1.1, if that's what ultimately we spent this year.
But I am trying to do what I can that's not salary. The other thing I want to push for is PTO. The current wording of it, and here is, each regular full-time employee shall accrue PTO based on length of service in accordance with the following schedule. In a simple definition, I'd like to try and get my officers PTO based on length of service, meaning length of law enforcement to New Mexico, or their certification.
And we base it on village service now?
Correct. So just simple things like that, which I don't think in the long run costs a whole lot, but does help. I mean, a lot of police departments, they're upfront giving officers 140 sick leave hours, and so it's whatever similar in annual leave, because they break it out. And I would like to see in the future we do that, to have a sick leave. It just makes it better for me when I'm looking at something. If someone asks me for sick leave, it's like, okay. When it's PTO, it's like, okay, what's going on? I can deny PTO, but I can't deny sick leave. This makes it convoluted and complicated to say, well, I have to ask you why you're taking PTO. And so that just makes things a little murky, as well as if they're taking sick leave, the officer can actually accrue overtime if they work overtime that week. Whereas if they take PTO, they lose overtime. So, but I believe that's all I have. If there's anything else, any questions?
Counselors? But Tim, this is for you,
Thank you.
and thank you for.
The one thing I'd like to say, Mr. Mayor, in wrapping this up is, I asked Jeremy to come up with this pay scale in hopes of it being a kind of a pilot program for the rest of the village. Right now, you may know, we have this big pay scale that has levels and grades, and there's no meaning behind it.
Right.
You just figure out what you want to pay somebody, and you find the square that's the closest to what you want to pay them. And there's no logic behind how they get, why they get moved from one level to another. It's just, to me, it's a silly exercise. This has meaning to it, what Jeremy developed. And there are pieces to it, you know, that I don't see that he necessarily handed out, but there are other bonuses for other certifications and everything that come into play. And that's what we want, is a very definable pay scale. It's gonna be different for each department, so we can't do this one big pay scale for the whole village. And so we had Jeremy do it this year. I know Teague's worked on his already. I don't think it's quite done, but
Not quite that.
But we're gonna follow the same type of pattern that Jeremy did for all departments and allow each department, my goal is to allow each department to develop their own pay scales for the next budget cycle. I just wanted to do one pilot to see how it'd turn out this year. And that's what we're looking to implement in the police force.
Something to do that is, of course, that's gonna take some policy change, so that's what else we've been working on.
Yeah, well, if, when we move, or if it looks like we're moving forward with this, June will be full of policy changes for the council.
Thank you.
Okay, Greg, would you like to go next? See, you have paper.
I may be able to help at least with one side of the room. I do have one pass out. So hopefully you can see some.
Oh, you have,
Here,
I thought you had multiple.
I just have one, sorry.
bring it over here, Jake, don't sit between us.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Council, Brett. I'm asking for a lot more money this year.
Well, you've already got us,
I'll just say it right now, but just so you know, we have $111,000 more this morning than we had yesterday. The state has, through the New Mexico Tourism Office, has awarded us $111,000. It's a matching grant. You'll see it on an agenda soon for approval. We will have to put up about 50 grand to access that 111,000. But it's for things we wanted when we looked through it, things that we would actually use, not just random
when it's
marketing.
50,000, it is strictly advertising,
Yes,
and so that 50,000 can easily come out of the lodger's tax.
it would come right out of the budget line here. It's already accounted for in this, so it's not an additional expenditure of any kind. All right, we do have some changes on payroll because of adding people, going to a full-time, trying to get the visitor center open 7 days a week, hiring 2 more people there. That'll bring our staff to a total of 4, including myself. We'll have basically full-time coverage and full-time people. But we're gonna need that staff to cover events as we move into more events, as we get that village center open more. The things we're doing, it's just gonna require some more bodies to help do it.
Hold on, let me restart this real quick.
Well, it's so much better if I can talk about it while it's not up there. If you guys could just turn that over.
Go ahead, Greg.
So right there where that big note box is, on full-time employees, it's quite a jump. I don't think that is a surprise in any way. Our next,
Did you see that? Okay.
and
Sorry, I
then
was just putting the revenue in.
FICA, para, health benefits, all those things are based on the number of employees, so all of those increased equally based on those formulas. Travel and training went up slightly. I did attend the governor's conference last week, but it wasn't more than $600 in expenses, so.
Would that have any bearing on getting awarded this grant?
No, it really didn't. Brett thought I was successful in going down there, and my overwhelming personality got us
That's
that
kind of
money.
another,
I was trying to
No.
give you credit, you know?
No, He was
He was
trying to make it sound like, no, but that was as much work by Monica at Christofferson and Associates and myself, working with the state, coming up with what we wanted, but it had nothing to do with me traveling, actually.
But it was worthwhile.
Oh, it was very worthwhile. We got personal time. We do have a town hall coming up. The state's coming up on the 5th of June to host a town hall. We'll send out an announcement on it tomorrow. As soon as I get some assets from the state and confirmation from them, they'll be coming up with the tourism department to host an event at the community center. So that'll be great. we're getting more attention from the state, which is nice. Good attention, not just from the Secretary of State.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, that's your attention. This one, the other contractual services, that I have to revise down. This is too high a number on there. That had, there's some things in there that are now considered advertising, that'll be in the $1 million advertising line. So that number should probably get halved between now and the final reading of this budget. So that's gonna come down substantially, which will get the budget closer to where Brett wants it, which is about $1.5 million, and right now it's at $1.7 million, so we're a little high. The other areas of big expenses are advertising and promotion. You'll see that's jumped up substantially from last year, but we have the lodger's tax monies in the coffer. Some of it we need to spend, and we're planning on spending it in a way that will provide a return on investment. We're not just going out there and throwing money away. We're doing it on trackable things like digital ads, social media. We'll also be doing some digital billboards and some other things, but we will be trying to track our $1 million in advertising and promotions everywhere we spend it.
And just for clarification, for everyone's sake, when you say $1.5 million, and as the police department, we just scrutinized them over 1.3, can you tell me how much of this comes out of the lodger's tax fund, of the budget?
That is all out of the lodger's tax fund.
Your entire budget is?
Entire budget is.
So, Mr. Mayor, and Heather and I talked about this today, but, so, with the two administrations ago, there was two budgets that tourism had to do. They had their own budget that used some money out of the general fund, and then they had lodger's tax. Well, the last administration combined those two, and they got rid of tourism. We're gonna have to go back to tourism because there are some things that you can't do in lodger's tax. So, for example, this grant that he received, that we're gonna check, it may need to be in a special fund because it may need specific use.
Michael Gilmore said the special revenue fund.
They did say that? Okay. But there are other things that you can't use lodger's tax for that he needs to still spend money on. So you will see, we haven't got that all figured out quite yet. You'll see in the final budget, a little bit of this money move over into a tourism department that'll be part of the general
And
fund.
can you guesstimate at this time what that number would be? What percentage of this budget?
It's not gonna be a big percent to start with. It's gonna be less than $100,000. But it's more of a requirements issue because, and like,
needed to be able to spend the remaining $1.4 million?
so like, for example, he's gonna get for the balloons over Angel Fire, he'll get probably what, for the fees for that?
Sponsorship fee?
Yeah, 20 grand.
20 grand, yeah.
So he's gonna get 20 grand in sponsorship fees. So that money has to be recorded outside lodger's tax, and the expenditure of that money has to be recorded separately from lodger's tax. Which, actually Heather caught it from last year. They had put it all on lodger's tax. It's not, it would have been an audit finding if Heather hadn't caught it.
Good job, Heather.
Thanks for keeping us out of jail, Heather.
These are some of the notes that I printed off.
Okay. Hopefully, that was more to Shay's.
Yeah.
Let's go over that. Okay, I'm sorry, continue, please.
You wanna tell us about special events?
Yeah, the events, as you know, we're stepping up, we'll be taking over the events that currently the resort is funded, Cool Summer Nights, Farmers Market, and any other events we can find. We also have the Skate Festival. We've donated some money to this weekend's Mayhem on the Mountains, the bull riding event, we're a sponsor up there. So we are trying to look at events that will actually contribute back into lodgers' tax dollars. My goal is to take those cool summer nights concerts, the bands, bring in a little more popular bands from regional areas that will also bring their fans along. So we're selling some lodging during that show, replenishing the lodgers' tax fund. So everything we're gonna try to do with events is tourist related, driving overnight visits, getting people to stay longer and spend more is the goal with all the events. It's a big step up. I doubt we're gonna hit that number this year. We just won't find the events to do, but if we do, it'd be nice to have a big fall event. We're working on a wine thing, a beer event, different things to try to fill out the summer well.
You'll see this bottom number, they're actually gonna spend approximately $850,000. I think there's a few more cuts that we talked about, but $850,000 more than they're gonna bring in revenue. And that is an intentional spend because even though we had the 1.1 spend on advertising, next June, we may be looking at a similar scenario if we don't spend this kind of money. It's gonna taper after that. After that, we're gonna have to start tapering off and getting back into spending the revenue we bring in.
Unless Greg does a hell of a job and brings up the lodgers tax that much more.
The goal is to bring more
That's true.
lodgers tax, more grant money,
That's-
and not cut the spending down. I like to
I
spend.
really wanna say that's gonna be the true test, is if this budget can, I mean, I think that would be incredible if after 2 years you were able to sustain this budget, but yeah, I understand exactly what
So
that is.
the difference is, we may spend a similar amount of money, but it won't be reducing our cash balance because the revenue will be covering the expenditure. That's the goal. Any other questions?
I don't have any this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Teague, you're up, buddy.
Mary, you'll be happy enough, I put cones out, so.
Thank you.
Teague, which one do you want to start with?
I will say they didn't work very good at the wedding platform over the winter. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to start with the general fund or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have to break out my reading glasses for small print. All right. Mayor Lindsay, Manager Weir, councilors. We're going to start with the general fund. I've been directed by Manager Weir to divide up the fire department funds as follows. General Fund 110, this fund will include all personnel assigned to EMS and structural fire suppression, along with fire administration. It will also include line item detail for projects that cannot be paid for with state fire funds. Our first draft included the addition of a deputy chief. This has since been deleted in order to make certain that we first have funding for key line positions. We relied on the NFPA Standard 1710, Organization Development of Fire Suppression, Operations EMS, and Special Operations that require a minimum of 4 firefighters on the first out engine assigned to initial fire attack. This can help us with the process of lowering our ISO rating. It's also the ability to staff 2 ambulances if and when we have simultaneous calls. This draft includes the following addition changes. Captain who will serve as fire marshal and conduct inspections and investigations. 3 shift lieutenants, 1 for each shift. Working on the primary ambulance, we work a 48-96 schedule. These lieutenants additionally will serve as our duty officers. 6 additional fire EMS personnel for second ambulance response. We hope to get 3 of these positions funded by the FY25 firefighter recruitment fund that was just passed, that I spoke about during the last council meeting.
And, I'm sorry, Tease. I just want to interrupt because that grant that was just passed by the legislature, the revenue for that grant's not reflected here.
Correct. This will also help us with NFPA requirements, a mix of full-time and part-time personnel to cover the third ambulance response. Our proposal is more than last year, but we've noticed that a number of the fire department funds that had incorrect journal entries from the previous administration and are unreliable for our FY to FY comparison. $60,000 for EMS supplies, since we're not eligible for EMS funds in the next FY. $375,000 for vehicle replacement, of which approximately $173,345 is already committed to our new ambulance, and the remainder for a replacement Type 6 wildland engine brush truck. Also, revenue generated from EMS billing does not go back into the fire department, rather it goes to the village general fund. Should we receive funding from the firefighter recruitment fund, we will receive at least $195,000 in year 1. Any questions for me on this fund? So, if you look on the first one here, one thing to note, so we're a little bit high on our budget request compared to last year, but again, vehicles is high for us at $375,000, and that's including the ambulance and the brush truck.
That's already coming.
The ambulance is coming, yes, at the end of the year, sir, and then the brush truck that we're hoping to purchase to replace a 2004 Type 6 that's actually currently out of service at Station 2.
Is it not worth repairing at this point?
We're trying to do some temporary fixes just because of the wildland season, but even if we ordered a brand new Type 6 today, it would probably be 2 years before we received it due to the chassis.
So, Mr. Mayor, the one thing I will say is this budget, even though it's going to be approximately 100% increase year over year, it is based on an ideal situation, primarily that we have 3 ambulances, which quite frankly, with the challenges that Eagle Nest is having, is something that not only Eagle Nest, also the resort is closing down Ultimate this summer. Their provider pulled out. You know, it's something, it's going to be a real consideration that we need to look at.
I
It's
understand.
having 3 ambulances in operation instead of the 2 we have now.
So can you, I mean, I know this may not be but can you better explain to the situation in Eagle Nest, their ambulance?
Yes, sir. Mayor Lindsay, the issue with Eagle Nest Ambulance is that they applied for and got a PRC license certification for their ambulance. So it's a certified ambulance that allows them to transport patients and bill for their services. But the requirement is that the ambulance is staffed 24/7 at minimum BLS level. Unfortunately, you know, for whatever reason, they haven't been able to fund that ambulance for staffing for.
Is that ambulance used, I mean, I know it was used some by Angel Fire in the past.
Yes, sir. So, former administration, they were trying to work out some agreement to where we would actually send personnel to staff the ambulance in Eagle Nest. That failed miserably because the problem is just because we have personnel stationed in Eagle Nest, one person, they had to sit and wait for a driver, one of the volunteers to show up. It could take 10 to 15 minutes. by that time, we could have just sent an ambulance from Angel Fire. There were actually times where we still had to send resources from Angel Fire to help cover that call.
Oftentimes that resource had to come over here.
Correct, to back up our calls. I mean, we're running 550 calls a year. They're running a fraction of that. And so it just, as it stands now, we're covering their calls from Angel
And
Fire.
it doesn't seem like that's gonna be resolved anytime soon.
They have hired the previous fire chief to be their director of EMS. So he's doing, from my understanding, is he's doing 36 hours a week. And then, and trying to hire additional staff. But their variance ends on June 15th, and I just don't know what the PRC is gonna rule on that. They were pretty strict that they were gonna have to have 24/7 coverage. And just so you know, we covered a call that took us towards Cimarron that just this past weekend. It was a stroke patient, and it took 45 minutes to get there. No helicopters were available due to the weather, and we ended up transporting. It was an hour and a half to Taos, critical stroke patient.
Where was it, and that was in Cimarron? Or
It was on Highway 65. 64, yes. It took them, I talked to Crew this
Yeah.
morning, it took them quite a while.
So, and then Eagle Nest, are they contributing at all financially?
No, sir, they have not.
So there's no contract for service, and we have a decision, or not we, the state has a decision dated June 15th. So can you run the scenarios on if the PRC allows them to continue versus if they don't? Like, what does that look
So
like?
if they don't allow them, technically what happens is then they go back to being a medical rescue. So they would have the ambulance, which by the way is a nice ambulance, and it's set up pretty well. I'm assuming that now that Mr. Bobick is there, that it's ALS, or set up for ALS. It was not at the time because they only had basics and intermediates. We actually used our equipment and our personnel to staff it. So they would go back to being a medical rescue. And in that situation, that means that they can respond it, to an incident and then request, they're still gonna have to request a intercept for mutual aid. And that's what we've been doing this whole time is mutual aid.
But it's kind of one-sided.
It is, yes, sir. Now, just to be clear, we support Eagle Nest, we take their calls just as important as we do ours.
Well, just like the call you just took beyond Eagle Nest.
Correct. And so the flip side is I remind our folks that if we get into a situation where we have 2 or 3 calls, I always say, don't forget, to call Eagle Nest if they need to come and try to back us up, because that's the way this is supposed to work with mutual aid. Unfortunately, since I've been here, it's pretty much been one-sided.
Okay, well, thank you for shedding a little more.
Yes,
So
sir.
Chief, before you go, I would like you to talk a little bit about your plans for vehicle maintenance and, actually go ahead and include what you've done recently in that regard.
Yes, sir. Mayor Lindsay, Manager Weir, the maintenance on the vehicles fell behind pretty drastically. I think every vehicle had some type of engine light or, maintenance was due.
There were several out of service.
There were several out of service, and so we did spend a good portion of our funds this fiscal trying to get all of those apparatus. We have a couple of different vendors that we use, and we've been able to kind of play some catch up. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where we start to feel like we get the vehicles fixed and then other things start to happen. Just recently, our Pierce engine, which we haven't really had any problems with, now we have a turbo actuator that went out, unpredicted. We have a brush truck that we just got the engine replaced on, this heater at Station 3 is out of service because it had a knocking sound. And so we're like, and it was just worked on. So it's covered under warranty, but now that vehicle is gonna have to go, it's actually being towed today back for service. The ambulance at Station 3, Med 80, or 2380, it's got a lot of miles on it. And so we put some work into it. We're really hoping that we get the new ambulance soon. Because when the third ambulance the new ambulance comes in, we'll have 3 very nice units to be able to safely get us to and from Taos. So, but we still have equipment that needs some work done on it. So it's kind of our fleet is aging. And I think that's the key piece here is that we're gonna have to start looking at over the next 5 years, a replacement plan. You know, the ladder truck just came back after being gone since September and, you know, cost the village a good pretty penny to get fixed. We knew that it had a lot of issues. That truck apparently from previous administrations has had issues since we got it. And now it's going on, I don't even know how many years it is, 18 years old.
And not to mention just the facility itself, fire station number 1.
Station number 1, you know, it's, it didn't pass the fire inspection. You know, that was the first thing. So,
Not fun.
we had to spend quite a bit of money on the bay doors. You know, I know we keep talking about the new fire station and how much it's needed, but even again, if we broke ground tomorrow, it would be 2 years out before the station is built. So we had to spend a bunch of money on the bay doors because, you know, they're falling down. We actually have to lower the back end of the ambulance, the load position, just so that it can fit into the station. So it needs a lot of work. But I have a plan, you know, with that, with the other fund, the 309, that we'll have to do some work on.
Chief Teague, one more thing, if you could talk about the increase in professional services, I'm showing up there, it's, you know, it's a pretty big jump, so if you could explain that, please.
So, yes, sir, Manager, so professional services, some of this was monies that was taken out of the 209, which is the fire protection fund that we just had the audit in. And so we weren't allowed to do that. So we actually had to increase our professional services to include our Red River Dispatch, the fee that we pay for our dispatch center, EMS medical direction, our quarterly pharmacist, things like that. Those things are now have to come out of the 110. Anything that was not allowable out of the 209, out of the fire protection fund, we had to kind of redirect back to the general fund.
Are you budgeting for another finding in the next fiscal year?
It's a good point, I don't think so.
No, sir. We haven't budgeted for it. We know for a fact
Coming.
that it's coming, thanks to senior admin Valerie Witt. She's already.
She didn't cause the problem, she's helping rectify it.
That's correct. She is.
Solving.
But yeah, we're gonna have another, we just approved, well, with the fire marshal, but another one's coming for
Yeah,
this
so
fiscal year.
It'll be
Be significantly
close to a
less.
year from now, it'll be in December probably.
But it'll be in this fiscal year. And it
It'll be in
should,
this fiscal year,
it should be less than the one we just,
and it's only a half a year instead of a full year, so.
well, it carried over from the previous administration. Most of the deductions happened from July 1 to December 31st. There was a little bit of carryover on some of the services
January.
because of how it was being pulled. That our billing, right, the billing, ambulance billing was still coming out of that, so. But we've corrected all of that and hopefully we'll be on the.
but it is a number that we should try to plug in if possible.
Yes, but I just wanted it to be clear that, because it looks in the numbers like that's a huge jump, but actually it's just a correction of expenditures that we were incurring in other funds.
Right.
Oh, yep, everything I just said is in there, all right. Good.
If I could pause you for just a second here on your general fund, so I wanna make sure I'm reading this right. So starting on the left column, your 21-22 actuals, that's actual expenditures, 21-22 is $750,000. budget for the next year was about 1.4, but we actually only spent about 950. And then rolling forward budget for 23-24, 1.7. But activity, assuming that's actuals, is about 950. So it looks like for the last several years, we have underspent our budget by about $500,000 or so annually. Is that where all of this maintenance and vehicles that are down, it's just stacked up on you over the last several years?
I would just like to say it's two things. It is that, but it's also improper use of the fire protection fund. That was $200,000. Now, we're fortunate that we were able to whittle that down to 47,000, but it was
205,000.
205,000. That was 1 year's worth of potentially misappropriated expenditures. So you would have to take that money out of that fire fund and stick it into here to get closer to actuals.
Yeah.
And then, you know, apparently, I don't know, but apparently they weren't keeping up with vehicles the way they should, so.
Expensive.
And they had the money to expend. It wasn't that they didn't have the money.
You know, and I think I mentioned at the council meeting, you know, rolling of the ambulance, you know, the winter of 2021, you know, that was, you know, those types of things just kind of catch up. You try to budget as closely as possible, and that's why we're trying to make sure for the vehicles, because we know that we're going to need a brush truck, a type 6 engine, and so we need to order that sooner rather than later, like I said, because it's going to be 2 years out. And so, and just for clarification on the fire protection fund, you know, the 205,000, you know, so there was obviously expenditures, but part of the problem was the way that it was being documented, and well, it wasn't being documented, and it wasn't showing exactly what was being spent. So when they sent us that report and they said, hey, you've got all of this, you know, all of these expenditures, but no supporting documentation. And that's why I want to thank Senior Admin Witt, because she was able to go through all of that information line by line and go in and justify. And so we were able to go back and justify some of those expenditures that weren't clear to the fire marshal's office. So we were able to get it, you know.
And they worked well with you as well.
They did, actually. I think we were a little harder on ourselves than, you know, they gave us the benefit of the doubt.
They appreciated this.
Yeah. It was meticulous, so.
Which fund next, Chief?
You wanna go to the, let's do Wildlife.
3012.
Should be on 516.
So, one of the things that we did, we had Wildland and Slash in the 299, and then working with Manager Weir, we separated Wildland and Slash into two separate enterprise funds.
So a 299 is a special fund. That's a fund where you receive money that has to be used on something very specific. And it's generally grant money or appropriations, things of that nature that fall under 299. The Wildland and the Slash program have been placed in the 299, which really isn't an accurate depiction of the types of funds. Wildland earns revenue, it's earned revenue, and the Slash program has billed revenue. So under those two conditions, when you have earned revenue and billed revenue, and the revenue is enough to support the functioning of your department, it technically should be in an enterprise fund. And so that's all we're doing, is we're moving, it's not really changing the expenditures or anything like that, it's changing the reporting into what I believe is a more accurate. These don't qualify technically to be special funds. And they should be set up as enterprise funds, like solid waste and water wastewater. And the state even provides a fund called Fire Enterprise, which is Fund 516. That number is established by the state. And that is for projects exactly like this.
So, thank you, Manager Ware. In the Wildland Enterprise Fund, we have included a wildland coordinator, an engine boss, and 2 wildland firefighters. Full-time personnel shall be cross-trained to assist with slash as needed, as well as initial attack for wildland incidents within our primary jurisdiction. Revenue from wildland is estimated at $500,000 annually. Part-time wildland firefighters will be paid for training, initial attack response, and deployment in and out of state, for which we can bill. Also included in this fund is $300,000 for the Type 6 engine to replace our 2004 Type 6 engine 3571. Any questions in regards to the wildland fund?
The 300,000 is for a type 6, not the type, it says type 3 on my sheet, is that?
Type 6, I'm sorry. I was taking notes back there. I was
Sure.
making copies of what I was taking notes on.
So the one thing, Mayor and Council, that I want you to recognize is that, so this fund, because they commingled the slash and the wildland funds, we're still going through the process of trying to figure out the cash that was in the, special fund, the 299, exactly how that cash should be allocated. Right now, we're assuming that it's about 50-50. It may not be the case once we finally go through and analyze that. But the wildland fund will be decreasing their cash position in this budget by approximately $300,000, which is that additional vehicle. So they're actually spending that more than their revenue. If you look at this report up on the screen, you'll see that the actual ending balance is a positive 294. That means that their cash balance will be decreasing by $294,000 in this budget. And again, we don't know the exact amount of cash that belongs to them, but we believe that there's more than the 294 in cash that belongs to Wildland.
All right. So if we can move to the slash. The 3002. So the wildfire protection enterprise fund, this will include the slash supervisor and 2 additional slash coordinators. The primary purpose of these positions will be to manage incoming slash, pick up slash, and operate our air curtain incinerator. To the extent possible, full-time personnel will be cross-trained in wildland firefighting. Revenue from the wildfire protection fee is estimated at $550,000 annually. In the event that our wildland team goes out on deployment, which is what we want, right, is we can also have our slash program continue business as usual, and they will be able to still manage the incoming slash and operate the ACI and try to mitigate that issue until we get that, what is it called?
We're looking at Hogzilla.
Hogzilla.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, also if you look at on the spreadsheet, at the bottom for vehicles, there's 400,000. Obviously, the equipment is another big issue for us. When we separated slash from solid waste, the equipment that we received in that department was pretty aged. The front end loader, the grapple truck, and the skid steer. So we've spent already quite a bit of money on those vehicles, trying to keep them operating. But the front end loader alone is, 15 years old, and it's, and the tires have less than 20% left on them. So that's a big expenditure.
So in this department, you only have 1 grapple truck,
Yes, sir.
but doesn't the village have 2?
Solid
does.
waste has the other one.
Solid Waste has the other
What
one.
are they using it for?
Kurt?
Essentially, they haul the scrap metal to Las Vegas that's accumulated at the solid waste transfer station.
That's what they use the grapple truck for?
Yeah, it makes a trip every 2 weeks maybe to Vegas.
Is it still fully functional?
It's the newer of the two.
Okay.
I wasn't here during that transition, and, there was some concerns about what funds paid for that equipment and when they separated. But again, that was previous administration, so we're left with what we have, so.
So I would like to say this isn't, I wouldn't say it's not unpopular among discussions with myself and Manager Weir, but I would just like to ask you, and I'll ask Kurt the same thing. Moving forward, if we were to drastically change our slash program, whether, and the vision now that Councilor Crane and I are working towards is contracting out the disposal of the slash, but what would most likely be required on the village side is grapple trucks to collect the slash from the lots and deliver it to a contracted site. And then there's a fee to dump, and they also charge you, so every time you dump, there's a fee, and then based on how much you have, they charge you per cubic yard. So ideally, that would be how we handle the slash moving forward. We don't accumulate out at the transfer station. It's completely off-site. The byproduct is theirs to do with whatever they want. Would it make sense to keep it under the fire department at that time?
Mary Lindsay, yeah, that's a good question.
Just things I just want to discuss. I don't know how quickly we can move on this, or if it's even a feasible option. We're just arranging meetings now. But it is something that I wanted to consider.
Right.
If we just completely changed how we handle the disposal of our slash.
Slash. Yeah, right now, our current situation is we're using, everything's being done by the wildland team, so.
That
but
helps keep a wildland team busy.
Right.
When they're not needed for service.
Yes, sir, and so.
And maybe training as well, right?
What's that?
Training as well?
Yes. So, right now, because it was the off-season, having the wildland team doing the pile burns, using the ACI, and we only have this slash supervisor operating that equipment. So that's kind of how we've been trying to.
And I want to commend them on what they have gotten done.
Right.
They wildly overestimated the amount that they could get done over the season based on the amount that we have going into fire season.
Right.
Still on the ground. So that's why we're having to reassess how we dispose of it. But based on our practices, they're doing a great job. But we're just gonna have to look for more efficient ways
Understood.
to handle it. So I don't know if that's still something you see the wildland team, or if they move into some other role. We would need inspectors, we would need possibly, I don't see how it would work right now, but actually contracts, they could contract to thin lots, that
Right.
sort of thing.
Going out into the community.
Actually be on site producing the slash. These are all things to look at. Again, I'm not trying to throw you a curveball at this last hour, and I don't think that we'll make that transition this year, but I want to start getting input, or if it's something that we should be looking at between now and the end of the month.
Understood, yeah.
Not trying to get you off guard.
No, I understand. Yeah, like I said, right now, the wildland team, they also operate a chipper that was purchased with state funds, and so that's, something they also, bringing in the slash and utilizing that chipper. We just got that renewed, because after 1 year, the state had the option of taking that back, but they actually allowed it for us to keep it with us, so.
The chipper?
The chipper, yes.
Is it functional at the moment?
It is, very much so, yeah.
Are they utilizing it at the moment,
Yes, sir.
in addition to the burning?
Yes, sir, they are.
I guess my question would be, and I know we're putting you on the spot here, but, you know, the Hogzilla we went to see in that process is certainly kind of our capacity fix, we hope. But of these $400,000 of, you know, if we change gears on it, that's obviously older equipment that's needing a lot of TLC. What's the timeline on expenditures there? Because if we're gonna ask you or solid waste, whoever, to change gears, how much of that work should go on versus how much of that equipment should be auctioned or is redundant, or, you know what I mean? Is there a timeline to that $400,000?
Yeah,
Yeah, Councilor Crane, I don't really have a timeline. I mean, the equipment that we have is functional, and I will say that in conversations with Kurt, you know, if we needed to utilize any of their equipment, he's been very helpful in that, you know. But right now, you know, it's functional, but we have had to order, you know, we've already spent quite a bit of money ordering tines for the front end loader, and I know that there's a lot of maintenance to do.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Crane, I will say that even if we get a Hogzilla, we're still gonna need new equipment to feed the
well,
Hogzilla.
if we operate the Auxilla.
If we
If the
operate.
village operates it.
And in my vision, we're just running grapple trucks. And then the contractor has the loader, the excavator, and the Hogzilla.
Got it.
That's one scenario. There is a scenario where we own a Hogzilla. One thing we're gonna have to figure out is how to get through this material faster, especially with these new grants. The material, this valley's gonna be inundated in slash. And that's currently the choke point on our fire mitigation,
Yes, sir.
so.
Yeah, and, you know, the limitation, they do great when they burn these piles, you know, but the conditions have to be just right.
Yeah.
And with, you know, the wildland season starting, and it's gonna be hot and windy, and we're definitely gonna be
And
restricted.
they're hauling more in.
And there's more and more coming in, you know, we're working to get that second ACI going, so we can have 2 ACIs going at the same time, but, yeah, there's just more intake than.
There's a lot of challenges.
It is, very challenging.
And again, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just wanna point out again.
Councilor Weeks has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Would be if we are looking for new equipment, it'd be, and we have some more dated equipment with the roads department, maybe some of that older equipment from the roads could go to work in the slash, and then new equipment would be more allocated for the roads department.
That would be a consideration. I'm sorry, Manager Weir?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, I want to point out that you'll notice that the expenditures are $206,000 greater than the revenue in this fund. But again, there's 900, what did we look at this morning? How much cash was there?
900,000.
900,000 in cash in the current 299. And if we're estimating that it's split 50-50 between these two funds, which we don't know exactly what that split is, but the budget here will be covered by the cash that we have. So we'll have a declining cash balance, but it's not like we're gonna, you know, get in trouble from DFA because we are spending more revenue than we have because we have that cash balance.
I have a question. Manager, you're probably the one that needs to answer this. Years ago, the village assessed a fee, I don't know what it's called, but it's basically a slash fee. It's on our monthly bill. And it was, back then, it was to buy the first grappler truck, and we started picking up slash. Did that fee go directly to a fund, or does it go to the general fund and then feed out into?
So originally, Councilor Humbert, originally it went into the solid waste fund. That money was there because solid waste handled slash, and they bought the chipper and all those things with that money. And then, in the prior administration, they separated it from solid waste and they put it into fire, primarily because instead of just chipping and hoping people would come pick it up, they decided to start burning the slash as a way of disposal. And of course, it made more sense to have the wildland team burn the slash. So they moved it out of solid waste and they moved it into the fire, really, they moved it into that special fund, which it should have never been moved into. And so all we're doing is we're keeping it the same, we're just categorizing it more appropriately. But this 550,000 is the, that they're getting in revenue is the
Okay.
money you're
That
talking
was where I
about.
was going. Thank you.
And that, just for clarification, the trip to Rio Dosa, they burn nothing, they still collect that fee, and they are actually considering increasing those fees to help keep up with the costs of removal of all of that material.
Yeah, Rio Doso uses that fee to pay the vendor
Yes.
to
Take,
process the slash.
They drop-
It was
yeah,
to
they
get
drop
rid
it.
of slash,
Yeah,
and that's where it's going. That's
Yeah.
how it's used, whether it's burning or whichever, that's where it's going. That was the question.
that's correct.
I have a question. Do you know if both of those grapple trucks were bought directly from the funds raised by the?
They absolutely were. They were both purchased with wildfire protection fund fees. Now, when they separated out, I don't know what accounting they did to transfer, you know, I mean, yeah. I don't know how that was, the slash fund was accommodated for the fact that they no longer had that grapple truck. But they were both bought with slash money,
Okay, so, but
or
just-
fire protection fund money.
Just to be clear, one of those gravel trucks is still with solid waste.
I
Yeah,
understand.
the newer of the two, it sounds like.
You know, it was a little grayer back then because the wildfire protection fee went to solid waste. So it was actually in that enterprise fund where that grapple truck was purchased, but had they not had those funds, back then, the budgets were much tighter than they are today. And had they not had that wildfire protection fee, they wouldn't have been able to afford that second grapple truck. Although I do believe they got some grants in relation to it, I can't remember exactly.
It's a long time. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Manager Weir, did you want to, on the other funds,
The only other one that I wanted you to cover was EMS.
EMS Fund 206? This is the one Mayor Lindsay, councilors, this is the one that I brought up at the last council meeting. This is where we receive our EMS Fund Act disbursements, and EMS expenses rarely deplete this fund. Again, because of prior administration, the application wasn't completed by the deadline, so we will receive 0 funds next FY. And instead of the 40,000 that we would have been eligible to receive, I have therefore moved EMS-related expenses to the general fund. Again, this is concerning because, you know, we spent time at the state legislature to get that bill passed for the EMS Fund Act, to get that up to 11 million, and, you know, just disheartening that the application wasn't completed.
When was that application due?
It was due, started in December, it was due in, I'm not exactly sure the exact due date, but right there around December, January. I did reach out to the EMS Bureau and ask for a waiver, explain the situation. And really it was denied, because we didn't meet the deadline. Our only option is to go before they call it the SWAC, which is a state committee in June or July. They meet every year, and so that I can go and possibly request, probably not all of it, but they may give us a waiver for part of those funds.
So you plan to attend that?
Yes, sir. Any other questions for the fire department? Thank y'all for your time and your consideration. I appreciate it.
I think before we break, thank you, Chief, really do appreciate it. Before we bring Kurt, let's take a 5-minute break.
I'm good.
The suspense just builds. It's the athletic awards banquet. It's
Stretch my leg.
So, my grandsons go down over the coast.
That's when?
5:30.
Where are you going?
Better talk fast. Better talk fast.
Come on, Kurt's gotta talk fast.
on my department, and I see y'all,
First thing you say, Kurt, it's no question.
Wow, yeah, hot too, huh?
You don't think
You should have went first.
It's all
I asked,
Yeah.
but it was,
grants, just different.
I also showed up 5 minutes before.
You're leaving, you're on stand for that.
That's splitting.
So there's gonna be something I have to
The
do.
wild man.
That's okay, I know you're busy.
Yeah, I imagine.
Because you know, going all over fund and all the revenue, now you're like trying to figure out, okay, which one is. And then you're trying to base salaries all for that.
Okay, yeah, whenever you can, you know, just because they want me to check, like, I'm thinking here, I wanna see what it's gonna take to
We
try to
have
get
looked
everything
at
there.
this so much, you know,
bathrooms,
trying to make
that's
sure
why
that.
Brett told me to reach out to you and just see what we thought, because I'm like, I
Oh,
don't know.
yeah.
I don't know to start that, you know?
Well, I actually.
It's over.
Oh, no.
No problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like,
Water out there.
we didn't have, like, a wish list.
I wish this was the same person.
Yeah.
Government or village, how we got that fire protection. So
Oh.
we were literally in a zoning board for the time out there, but.
Since he worked for
Hey, is this Ernie?
Oh.
That's right, yeah.
Sorry, we're in the budget meeting, I kept missing your call.
Okay, that's kind of where
I know, I'm
we're
like,
wanting to go is
but
get,
I was looking up.
they actually, I guess, thought, or at least Judge Weeks thought that there was already an engineer contacted about getting stuff out there, but it didn't happen. So when I met with Brett, then he asked me to meet with you and get the ball rolling. And so, and I know you're busy, so whenever,
That's, it's not an excuse here, so.
More overtime because it's PTO.
Is it something?
So I can either do it on there or give it back to PTO.
it's gonna be kind of a both, and then also the
Well, no,
fee, the sports are complex fee
The
that
thing is
they
that they're
think
supposed to work
there's some money in
106
there
hours.
too,
Not long.
that.
Oh, that's wildland.
Yeah, they go
We
up
can
with
use for the-
the 80.
Oh,
Yeah. So give it back.
So it's gonna be kind of a mix because the grant I was talking about today with the trail to go up there. If we ideas in it, all of that with updated, when we apply for that
They have a
grant. You
final
know,
council.
we want to include, well, we're doing this trail and that's the bus trail. So there is a place, even though grant doesn't cover budget management, but it does cover a trail that leads
You
to
know, the
a
deal with
destination that needs that.
police
So
department.
we're gonna try to do that kind of stuff, so it's gotta be kind of a big mix.
But I wanna move on
And then also
to
see like
all the results.
So you know
how last time-
I can export it to Excel, and so we're just trying to get that ball rolling. but
That is
so I can start
So
putting
that's-
that out there. Okay, so I appreciate it. Yeah, just give me, shoot me an email and run around.
The needs there. Yeah, with the shortage we have, unless there's any big changes in 2 years, then it would be good.
Yeah, so. Be good just to,
Kurt, what are you doing first?
Hoping we get some room.
Let's do water, wastewater.
I'm always.
I'm just hoping to get it up.
I live
Yeah, we're, a lot of our overtime coverage people.
It's like,
And I can't say, we'll see if there's the hurdles we're gonna have to cross with them. The problem is we can't go year round like they do.
Because it's
on the pickup,
Yeah.
and I think we're just a lot more.
I remember that.
It may not be.
And not easy.
But we'll see, we got all this grant money and we're floating around now.
Yeah.
You have a time Wednesday that works better for you in the morning?
Right now, I think I'm pretty free.
Because I would probably just come down here and
Yeah.
Zoom, because I think they're together.
We're still at 3.
Where's Dennis?
So we're gonna be doing.
Yeah.
Are we ready?
I think we're ready.
Have you had some applicants?
We did have applicants, we used to have them on the table, kind of right now. Is it really good?
Is there 1:15 tomorrow?
Like, it was
No,
state or two that were
Oh.
I don't think it'll take long, I just look out the window.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Right idea.
Somebody finally that knows how to scale type size.
Somebody wants his budget. Or he's not hiding it.
Yeah, yeah, the one's small, I can't quite read that, don't worry about it.
I gotta be able to see it too.
I'm pretty open Wednesday morning, so I want to make the time, we'll fire it off as soon as we get it set up. Wednesday morning is his best shot.
Yeah, Wednesday's the only,
Okay, you see it in a few weeks. Yeah.
Wednesday.
And then,
All right, I'll call him back when we're done. Is Kurt our last one, or do we have two more?
No,
That's it.
Kurt, then me.
Oh.
Save the best for last.
You're gonna go, and be like, I'm blowing up everybody's budget, here's what I want.
All right, if everybody is back, we'll reconvene with Public Works Director Epler.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, Manager Weir, Mr. Grote.
If I may, Kurt. Mayor, Council, the one thing I want to say about the Public Works Department is we projected revenues to be flat. But we do have the opportunity in June to increase revenues by CPI. Legally, we can do that each year. But we did not project that increase into the budget. That will be a decision you'll have to make in June. Go ahead.
Okay. I guess starting with full-time employees, even though there's a pretty big variance to actuals, this is based on desired headcount. We're continuing to hire people within the wastewater department to get it up to full staff.
So, I'm sorry, what you've got on the screen there, Manager Weir, is that all of these rolled up together?
No,
We're looking at, we've got a Public Works sheet,
Maintenance.
Go to water.
sorry, you need to go to water wastewater.
Okay, we're in water wastewater.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. Okay, water wastewater.
Yeah, it reflects the desired headcount plus 5% increase in pay. Are there particular line items?
How many openings do you currently have in water wastewater?
I could use 3 more people at this point.
And you're gonna need those people even once we get the SCADA system fully functional and the,
Yes, yes, because there's still plenty of work for those guys to do, a lot of meters to put in, a lot of
brakes.
water line breaks, we're staying pretty busy. We do intend to refill the manager position for water and wastewater. And have actually received a good applicant.
You do have a good applicant?
Yes.
And I think that, Mr. Mayor, Council, I think that's important because I think Director Epler's best service to the village will be as a project manager, roughshotting all of the projects that we will have going, and we have a lot going. And even though he has excellent skill and most of the equipment that is within Public Works, I just think having that water wastewater director handling the day-to-day operations will allow Director Epler to focus more on project management.
Well, and I can tell you just before, I mean, just in our discussions on the budget, he's gonna have his hands full across the spectrum of Public Works. So yeah, I think the more management, just based on the dollar volume where we are looking to spend this year.
Before we start, I want to say that particularly in water, wastewater, and in streets, the focus is on fully on repair and upkeep of infrastructure. Although there are some smaller equipment needs, everything's centered around getting things fixed and getting tangible results. So is there, you want me to go line item by line item?
Mainly, you just hit the items that you have notes on. I think the rest of the items are kind of self-explanatory at this point.
Okay, some of them I think are a little arbitrary. Uniforms and laundry, there's a significant increase in there. You know, simply for greater need for equipment to not only equip our workers, but for 2 different seasons. We gotta get them some work boots, we gotta get them winter boots as well. Traveling and training, we do want to take advantage of more training opportunities. Just last week sent 2 workers from the water department to a 3-day seminar on water certifications. And there are other opportunities out there, and we want to, as we get new employees, take advantage of those opportunities to help them improve their education and get their certifications. Repair and maintenance of buildings. What I'd like to do here is the current storage building, which is one of the buildings remaining from the old lumberyard, has a good concrete floor. Very horrible doors on both sides. We're going to clean up and organize that storage area. I'd like to put roll-up doors on that facility. We can get much better use out of that building in storage, and it would cost a lot less than building a new building. That's currently where all of our components for our meters and water line repairs are stored. And but with doors, we can use it for some dry storage during winter months for maintenance equipment as well as water department equipment that does not need to be kept in a heated facility. Repair and maintenance grounds, roadways and trails. Want to budget base course essentially for road repair after water leaks have been repaired where we've dug in the roads. Repair and maintenance of vehicles.
I'm sorry. That's a base course budget item for the water department.
Yes.
Specifically.
Yes.
Yeah.
This last year, this last fiscal year, we got a 1-ton dump truck where they're able to haul their own material. In the past, they've coordinated with streets department to haul in some base course after they've dug in the road. This is just an opportunity for them to be able to get a stockpile of material that they can use when convenient for them. Any more questions on that?
Oh, no, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
just a clarification, thanks.
Repair and maintenance of vehicles. Some of the vehicles of water department just take a beating, mainly doing the checks to the tanks and so forth and so on, and just want to.
That should get less as the roads get better, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The intention is to keep the vehicles they have operating and not have to buy more than one new vehicle this year. Other contractual services is a significant line item. This would be for contracting the replacement of undersized water lines.
Are those already identified?
We haven't totally nailed it down with, yeah, the lines themselves are identified. This dollar amount isn't enough to address them all. One thought on my side is that we start in an area on our southern perimeter that needs improved fire protection in the way of additional fire hydrants. I think it'd be a great place to start, because you know, everything's gonna be minimum of 6-inch pipe, 8-inch on a dead end line, with fire hydrants every 500 feet.
So everywhere on that map, that's a 2-inch lines priority.
Yeah, and there are a significant number of 2-inch lines over in our south perimeter, south of Monte Lake, 2 and 3-inch lines.
Is there anywhere in the budget for, obviously, we're gonna start getting the new water meters in and you're gonna have the SCADA system. We know we're gonna find some breaks and some bad lines once we have all that extra data, either from the SCADA system or the meters themselves. Is there any budget in here for some, you know, we didn't think there was a problem here, but now that we've got the data and can see it, we're gonna find some stuff we didn't know was there?
Yes, and that's actually part of this,
Okay.
knowing that even though we are making every attempt to fix water line leaks that we have at this time, we could arrive at a point where we need to contract some of the water line repairs out as well.
Just from a manpower perspective or
Yes.
timeframe?
And because we are making some advancements on knocking down the list of meter installations, we're starting to get new requests in.
Yeah.
So I feel we're going to get to a tipping point where we may have to hire some contractors to repair some of these leaks.
And then on the water meters, because obviously, I assume we had some backstock of the meters that we have been using. Once that backstock's gone, are you gonna start installing the new type meters right away, or is there a plan there yet?
Well, if they're able to implement their plan of starting here relatively soon, then yes, absolutely.
Okay.
There are only, right now, 2 needs that I know of that it's a situation where I'm gonna wait till I get a new meter to put in. One of them is a meter replacement to verify that the one that's in place is working properly, because their bills are too high and they think their meter's not working. It's usually the opposite when they're not working. But either way, the intention is to be able to put the new meters in right away. We are, moving forward with the installation of residential water meters, but it's a simple swap out on those when we do get the new meters in.
Let me ask you, and this is completely off topic, but since it came up, you said you're gonna be replacing a current meter with a new meter at the owner's request?
Yes.
Are they paying for the new meter?
Well, if their old meter is sent off and tested, and it comes back that it's not faulty, they would pay for the testing, the shipping, the labor to pull it out, and the new meter.
And again, Mr. Mayor, Council, I just want to point out that $2 million is coming out of cash carryover. As you can see on the screen up here, right now, the water department has a claim on cash at $2.3 million. So they should still have $350-ish left even after that expenditure in cash. It would utilize, we wouldn't want to go lower than that in cash carryover. You need a buffer in there for unforeseen. But with that expenditure, it would utilize their current cash carryover position. But it'd be used to, again, what I think is a very important issue of replacing undersized lines for both fire protection reasons and for service.
And quite frankly, it's an ambitious number. We may not be able to spend that this year,
It's true.
but I'd rather shoot for it.
Anything else on that? Okay. Small items, non-capital expenses, F&E, to update some office furnishings in the water department building. Tools, we need to update inventory. The inventory of tools across all my departments is actually kind of disturbing, I guess, or lack of tools. Also with a program to inventory and maintain that stock of tools, obviously. Safety supplies increase, employee training and education, as I mentioned before, and travel. We're gonna try to take advantage of more opportunities for employee education. Rent equipment and machinery, we potentially may need to rent generators as we're doing these SCADA upgrades for times where electric panels are being switched out and so forth and so on. And a pretty significant generator.
What is our generator situation at our well locations? Do we have backup generators currently?
Not at all the well locations. And there's not backup generators at any of the booster pump stations either. Utility plant and service, continue with the SCADA upgrades to cover the east side of the village. And purchase backup pumps for wells and boosters. So the ultimate goal would be to have all the backups that we need on the shelf in case there's an issue.
Do we have a projected idea when this SCADA will be fully complete and operational?
Well, if we get a approval in this budget to do the east side, we should be able to have it fully operational by the end of summer, September.
Really?
Yeah.
But we're starting on the east side now.
West.
West.
I'm sorry, the west side. That was one of the, one of the meetings, Bill, and then, but yeah, now we're, the east side of, if this budget's approved, it's in there.
So it's possible by the end of the summer.
Well, the monitoring part of the SCADA, absolutely by the end of the summer. They're installing components on the west side right now. The control system of it, since we need to upgrade the electrical panels and the VFDs, variable frequency drives, so forth and so on, everything needed to be able to control through the monitoring system, turning on and off of pumps, so forth and so on. That could be done relatively quick as well, but the next item I'm going to discuss could have a play on that, and that's building new booster station structures at booster station 2, booster stations 2, 6, 8, 9, 10, and Peralta Well. All 6 of those facilities currently are in a very poor state. They were built in 1983 and have not weathered well.
If we are doing those booster station upgrades as well as electrical upgrades, how important do you think it would be that anything that doesn't have a generator, should we look at that
Absolutely.
sooner than later?
Absolutely. And, you know, understanding the power requirements that are there are different than what you would find at a residence. I'll absolutely look into it. I think there'll be significant generators, but it absolutely makes sense because we've all experienced where a long-term power loss then starts to affect our water supply, particularly on the higher points of the mountain.
You're talking about, because those will need to be large, with
Yes.
3-phase generators, propane or diesel on those buildings?
Yeah, but probably propane. But for example, the pump on what they call the new well, the one right across from Olympic Park, would need a significant power plant to run it. It's a big pump. And the booster pumps from 4 to Aspen tanks are pretty significant as well.
I don't know that that's been an issue, as far as I know, we've had a lot of water service interruptions. I don't know if it's been due to lack of power in recent history, but I think it's something we should at least look into.
There have been cases, there was this last fall, there was a power outage on the east side of the village, that it was just a progression of people running out of water coming down the hill because nothing was getting boosted up throughout the night. But here again, when the calls started to go to the on-call personnel about loss of water, they drove up here, made the trip up to the first tank that was out of water and saw that it was out, and then realized that it was out of power, where the SCADA system is gonna be able to tell us when we're out of power. So can it be a combination of stationary generators or throughout all the locations, or a combination of dedicated stationary generators with the ability to have a portable generator if needed to go run pumps for a while? I don't know, I just haven't looked into it enough.
No, I think just anything to prepare for water interruptions.
I mean, if you're gonna look at the expense of large-scale generators at that point, is there any methodology to our pumping and where we're sending water? And, you know, in a perfect world, it's gonna be hard to gravity feed all of Angel Fire, but if we could change the flow directions or change the storage, you know what I mean? But you're talking about a pretty large expense to do large-scale generators plus the cost of operation. Is there anything we could change about the flow strategy that would accomplish some of that in a similar fashion?
We're in a tiered water system, we're victims of elevation, plain and simple. It has to be stepped up the hill, the source is down low, so it has to be stepped up the hill. So there's really not an alternative to pump from the bottom to the top. The pumps and pipe capable of handling those pressures to push all the way to the top to feed down to the bottom would be very significant. Okay. Next thing is equipment and machinery. Actually went lighter than what has been done in the past, because quite frankly, the wastewater department is pretty well equipped with 3 backhoes and now half use of a mini excavator, a 1-ton dump truck, really great back trailer, great jetting trailer. So what I've put in for is dollars for a trench box system, aluminum trench box system that keeps some of our digs safer. Some small compaction equipment, so we can do some better compaction when repairing some of these water lines and digging in the road. And a snowplow setup for the F-350 dump truck we acquired this year. And just the one vehicle put in would be a half-ton truck with a utility toolbox on the back.
Which one you want next? I'm gonna do solid waste next.
Sure.
Okay, so solid waste, starting with full-time employees, merit-based increase of 5%. Increase in overtime, as employees will be working more overtime during the busy seasons to keep the transfer station operational on weekends and keep pickups going through busy times. Uniforms and laundry, providing all employees with more uniform options for winter and summer. Travel and training, there are some training opportunities. Some of them are even out of state for personnel. One thing that comes into mind is, as we'll see later, is the hope that we can integrate a scale system at the solid waste facilities. And I could see this requiring maybe not training of an employee, but perhaps travel to see another facility that's making scale systems work and how they work. Repair and maintenance of the building and structures. It's just the general maintenance and repairs that will occur in that building. There is a door that may need to be replaced, a roll-up door on the lower level. Repair and maintenance of vehicles. A lot of this is centered around the repair of the over-the-road vehicles, even though I think could be considered to be relatively new. They are in need of certain maintenance things. Although not check engine lights on, stuff like that, stuff we just need to get resolved. But all in all, at 6 to 7 year old vehicles going to Wagon Mountain 2 to 4 times a week. As far as over the road trucks go, they're still relatively young in age.
Professional services.
Professional services, yes, thanks for, I didn't have it on my notes. This is to look at plan and design for a new transfer location, covered transfer location to replace the dumpster yard that we have right now. So this would be covering engineering or architectural designs if needed. Okay. And the next biggie goes down to building and structures.
Sorry, there was other contractual services here as well. It was 190,000.
Yeah, that covers the dump fees at the landfill in Wagon Mountain.
So sorry to interrupt, back to your
Yeah.
building and structures.
No problem. Building and structures, you see is significant. This is for dollars to go towards the construction of a new transfer site.
And again, there was a cash carryover from the solid waste department.
I'm sorry, my battery's getting ready to die. I'm gonna have to. Here.
Can you do that? Oh, just plugged into that.
That's not gonna work. Y'all keep going.
Well, yeah, so that was the,
1.9,
Yes.
okay.
and that's also, well, 190,000. I'm sorry. 160,000
Just for the design work.
design work. One point nine at the very bottom, yeah, buildings and structures.
One item that doesn't have the note on it, for some reason I couldn't get it to stick on there. Under vehicles, there are still budgeting $180,000 for a over-the-road truck. Kind of just in case, until I find out what the check engine lights are on.
Yeah, we have to have it. So Manager Weir, that was my question, was the cash carryover that's in the solid waste department specifically.
So the cash carryover for solid waste is a little short of this, but give me a second, I'll show it to you exactly. Is it 502?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, right now they got 2.3 million cash carryover. And keep in mind, you want to keep probably 300,000 to 400,000 there in reserve, just in case for unknowns. So we don't want to spend the full amount.
But his budget, the department request is just over that.
I know, there's gonna be, we're gonna have to make some changes. All of these will have some adjustments, especially in the general fund, you'll see
But even with the big expenditure, I mean, we're looking at over $2 million just in the possibility of another transfer building.
that's right.
Yeah, that's
1.9
That's where
there.
the big, so that's where that money we're looking to utilize.
And there are a few other things, like the vehicles that may give us some leeway, that 180,000.
Right.
And there was one more there, I forgot what it was up here. Whatever, but,
The buildings.
Building and structure
yeah,
repair.
that's what it was. So I think we may have to bring some of that down to make sure we have 300,000 to 400,000 in cash.
Okay, that was it.
And keep in mind, these aren't final numbers right now. So the number, we're not spending as much money as we're making right now.
Correct. Okay, that was all I had.
Which one are we going to next?
Maintenance real quick. I'll go through that. Okay, so with maintenance, percentage of change is pretty high because we want to have the addition of one employee. We're looking potentially at this added employee to take over janitorial services that are currently being performed by a contractor. But also one other task that we thought they would be able to assist with is have the discussion about getting some planters up on North Angel Fire Road next to the light posts. There could be a person that takes care of those plantings and so forth and so on, but also a third person to help during all seasons, a person that would potentially be working on the weekends. So would have coverage for maintenance need at the community center or anywhere else that's operating during the weekend, but also have a person here during the winter months on the weekends, or having to utilize the on-call system. Again, uniforms and laundries based on the addition of an extra employee. Repair and maintenance of vehicles. You'll see later, we're hoping to add a vehicle with maintenance. They're currently using a hand-me-down truck from Streets that is needed by them. It's a 1-ton dump truck and they utilize it. It's not the best truck to be running around for maintenance calls. So that, even though we do want to replace, add another vehicle with a tool, job box on the back, a utility box, having the need for that somewhat older dump truck is still there, and it's going to require some maintenance. Equipment, we are going to have the maintenance department equipped. They received one piece of equipment this year, a small sidewalk maintenance based vehicle, hoping to acquire a skid steer for them as well. They're currently borrowing a skid steer from Streets. And in recent weeks, they've definitely displayed some good work with what they've been able to do with that machine. Tools, they have a very limited tool inventory at this point and want to upgrade that. Bulk fuel line item will be affected by the addition of equipment and potentially another vehicle and another employee. Let's see. I'll go skip down to building and structures. Possible purchase of a tough shed for storage for all their tools. Currently, maintenance is sharing space with the water department. and space is getting pretty tight.
Where would the tough shed go, on that property?
Yes.
So you have the vehicles down here, but what's the equipment and machinery?
Equipment and
That's the skid
machinery
steer.
is purchase of a skid steer, but also a new riding lawnmower. The one they currently have is in pretty rough shape. They're making do with it. But what, it's a little Husqvarna, just like people would use on their lawns. But the amount that I put in there would accommodate the additional purchase of a brush hog for the front of the skid steer, which is a very valuable tool. A lot of the areas we have are too rough for just a regular riding lawnmower. And a skid steer with a brush hog can definitely get into some of the rougher areas.
I don't see anything currently budgeted for signage. Should that be a consideration? Just if nothing else, just replacement of damaged signs, maybe more posted speed limit signs, that sort of thing?
I thought that was something that was generally covered in the streets department.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong, yeah. Why it's in the maintenance department. Do they have any signage? Or would that fall more under seasonal type decoration stuff? I guess you're right, I got caught on the wrong department.
Well, in the past, the seasonal signage and the Christmas decorations, so forth and so on, have traditionally been handled by the streets department. I'm gonna pass those tasks on to the maintenance department. I think the streets department would be better utilized in their motor graders than hanging up Christmas stockings, so.
Okay.
So Mayor and Council, this budget, we are looking to add some additional personnel. It is gonna cost about a $200,000 impact to the general fund by doing so, but then it's gonna be countered by about a $60,000 reduction in other contractual services it will no longer have to pay, so it will net out to an increase to the general fund, but I think the general fund will be able to handle that increase.
Okay.
The next, Kurt, do you want
One left, isn't there?
streets?
Well, public works and streets.
Public Works, we'll go real quick.
You want to do public works?
Yeah. So the burden hasn't been added to this. So just the full-time employees, what this is 3 employees, Public Works Director, the Public Works Grant Writer, and the Public Works Administrative Assistant / Asset Manager.
Okay.
Plugged in items for travel and training, office supplies, incidentals such as that, fuel for the 2 vehicles that we have. The only other thing I've added is on the second page, acquiring a vehicle. We're currently using the vehicle that the former code enforcer used. And knowing that we intend to get another code enforcement officer, and we would potentially use that vehicle, just looking to replace it with a similar SUV or something.
Yes, sir. On the streets?
On the streets. Okay, first off, our whopping $6,000 a year that we bring in revenue. Start off with that, and then go to the expenses. Okay, full-time employees dictates desired head count. One thing that At this time, we're not looking to fill the streets department superintendent position. Currently covering that role myself. But the head count would put us at a total of 8 employees, desired head count.
So you do not anticipate hiring that position this fiscal year?
Yeah. Unless otherwise directed at this point. Increase in overtime due to demands in the winter season and more of a tendency to stay out till the work is done. And you can see that our actuals are closer to what I have budgeted than what was budgeted in the last fiscal year. Uniforms and laundry, update uniforms for street employees. Repair and maintenance of building structures. Building and structure, needs some repairs to the Public Works building. There's an old oiling system in there that has been non-functional, and all it's doing is making a mess that we need to have disposed of, and it's not something we can just take over to the dump and throw away. So we'll be having a contractor come in to dispose of all that for us. There's a heater that needs to be replaced, and the concrete slab on the north-facing bay, the main entrance and exit of that building needs to be replaced. Repair and maintenance of grounds, roadways, and trails, as you can see, is a significant jump.
Is most of that for trails?
Yeah, hiking trails. It's just due to the increase in the amount of material needed for road repairs throughout the village.
Just so that anybody that, last year there was $370,000 budgeted. Kurt's looking to budget 2.2 million this year.
I do want to jump to other contractual services.
$1.2 million.
Yes. And what that is, it's a combination of two things. $1 million of that is earmarked for the Lithotech project and the portion of road that we would like to do. We don't have the final numbers back from them yet. We were told we'd get them relatively quick, but the section that we're looking at right now is South Angel Fire Road from Highway 434 all the way to North Angel Fire Road, or Bill Burgess Boulevard, and also the addition of the remainder of Aspen Street from South Angel Fire Road up to Vale Avenue, along the parking lots there. What we have asked them to quote us is the scenario of the Lithotech product applied and a 2-inch asphalt cap, 30 feet wide. And the other portion of that $240,000 is to contract some of the work spreading some of the base course.
That's gonna take you over the bridge by the library, right? Is there gonna be
Yes.
extra work needed there to facilitate redoing the road on both sides of it?
Meaning replace the Jersey barrier
Well,
that
yeah,
they're
what-
doing right now?
Yeah,
I haven't looked into it yet. We have had discussion. We do want to do something different there. What has been the challenge of installing guardrail there, or even a bridge per se, and it's all possible, it's all doable, is the presence of dry utilities running over the tops of those culverts. That's what prevented them from putting guardrail in the first place. The amount of cover over the culvert and utilities being there wasn't enough to, but I, have some ideas, and I'm sure it's something an engineer could help us with, to come up with something that's viable. and doable with the current utility situations. At worst, I would say the utility would need to be relocated. But I don't have cost on that at this time. Okay, repairs and maintenance of vehicles. The plow trucks sustain a pretty good bit of wear and tear throughout the winter, and they're constantly gonna need repair. Same thing with equipment. We wanna stay on top of repairs. There are some items that I would like addressed on the motor graders in particular. Some upgrades, some of it's a little more significant work to the moldboards and circles. The motor graders are in good shape. They just, they're worth repairing. And this is, best way to describe it is things you do to take the slop out of the blade, just age that a machine gets. The machines are still in good shape and definitely worth keeping going when considering a new motor grader is $650,000.
Do we own those machines or do we lease them?
We own them.
Outright, are they free and clear?
They
I think
should
they are, yeah.
be this year. I think they were
I thought they paid out
5-year
last year.
notes when we bought them in 2018.
Well, they were parked for the last 3 years, so they should be great.
Aaron, I'd have to look and see if we still have debt service, but we don't have much left.
They'll also last a lot longer if they're blading smooth roads instead of rough roads. That's where the base course comes in.
Yes, sir.
Office supplies, cinder and salt inventory, not knowing what the winter is gonna bring. The budgeted amount last year was sufficient. We actually had a little bit of a surplus, but it was a relatively mild winter. So it actually kept that item close to the same. Tools, again, inventory of tools needs to be updated. I've already started some updates. A lot of these items are so small, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm wasting your time with them. Safety supplies, again, want to stress safety supplies and tools and uniforms, everything you guys need to do their work. Want to increase in that again. Same thing as with water. It's a multi-season department. They need winter boots and summer boots. Bulk fuel, due to potential fuel price increases, and maintenance of the pumps themselves. Those expenses are covered by streets. Rent equipment and machinery. When we get some of the larger projects going where we may be contracting out motor grader services, we may need to acquire another roller. Wouldn't want to purchase one. That'd be a 3-4 month rental. The equipment and machinery, looking at getting a small single axle dump truck that would allow them to haul greater quantities than in the back of a 1-ton truck, but also have a truck that a person that's not a CDL driver would be able to haul portions of material with 5, 6, 7 yards. And also that number includes 2 new snow plows for the next item, the 2 new plow trucks. We lost 2 plow trucks last winter, one to a blown engine and another to a cracked frame. So we in for 2 new plow trucks.
And so Mayor, Council, I will say this is a large budget, maybe the largest budget streets has ever contemplated. But $3.5 million of this is for maintenance on roads. And that $3.5 million will come out of the $10 million cash carryover we have in the general fund. So I think this year, when it's all said and done, that 10+ million that we have in cash carryover in the general fund will be reduced down somewhere closer to $5 million. And I will say that also, I feel that, I don't want to, this to be taken the wrong way, but I do think we're very ambitious in some of our expenditures and just the nature of our limited season for a lot of this work. I think that we will struggle to spend all that money.
Again, I like the ambitious goal, and the money, I mean, again, is a cash carryover from the general fund. And it's basically addressing a lot of deferred maintenance, so just hope we can.
Well, I agree with Manager Weir that, starting with these larger line items after the 1st of July, then we start creeping up on the seasons of breathing down there. We'll say that in the past, and I've even noticed this myself, the streets department has been, using, gosh, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank, but they get these funds to do a certain portion of road, okay, MAP funds, I believe it's called. And generally, those have taken place late in the fall. So there's been a whole bunch of time committed to doing this MAP project in the fall and not giving the streets department time to really get the roads in good shape prior to the snow starting. Okay, I could see that happening too with the larger projects. Now, the hope in contracting people to work on the larger projects is that we can keep our crews going on the regular maintenance, regular repairs, and stay on top, okay? Because when we commit our crews to one project, that's all they do and nothing else gets done.
Very good. Do you have anything else to add?
So, Mr. Mayor, we do have a decision to make. The next meeting was scheduled to start at 5 p.m. And I am the last presenter. We can get up and go through the numbers, but I can tell you this, that my departments, the finance, general admin, my departments are, they're only budgeting, we're basically going flat with a 3.5% increase in expenditures due to inflation. What could impact it is the topic of our next meeting, which is the para. And so I'm basically flat with a 3.5% increase, but the para would have a big impact if we decide to move forward with that. But still, I will tell you that in the general fund, all the money that we have is going to be well within the cash carryover that we have, and no significant increase to worry about long-term cash flow issues between the finance department and the other general admin, the other departments that I manage. So just for time's sake, I mean, I'm happy to show them to you, they're ready to be shown, but for time's sake, I'll answer whatever questions you might have. By the way, all of our revenue projections were flat based on last year's projections. And we're not anticipating any increase. Although I think with all the marketing activity that we're doing, we will see increases, especially in GRT.
And even on our water bills at some point.
Exactly. So I think we'll see increases everywhere. Again, water, solid waste, wastewater, those we can do in June a CPI increase to all of those. I think it's something we need to consider. We've just done it without thinking about it over the past. And it's not that we don't need the money, we're using the money this year, but I will tell you that currently all of those funds, the revenue they generate exceeds the expense of those funds. And it would be something for the council to consider, is taking a year off of increases in those funds. I think we'll have enough cash to get us through one more year, just to something to think about.
Well, with that, I'm gonna adjourn this budget discussion, and then I would like to call our next meeting to order. If you would please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me, point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
It's going to take me just a little while to get the next broadcast going, so if I could take 5 minutes.
You got it. Take a quick 5-minute break.
Yep.
Are we gonna use this?
No, we're gonna use the owl this time and just treat it like a regular council meeting.
Yeah,
Okay, so I won't be able to project up there?
I can't remember.
Unless you want to.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Okay, I'll have to invite you to this meeting now.
Okay.
So let me go in my office and do that.
Okay,
And then we'll just do the same drill.
okay.
Yes, I will.
This is the most fun I've had all week.
I bet, yeah. You hung in here the whole time. I'm proud of you.
Carlos probably weird.
I know, what's he doing?
16. Oh, he was forgetting my telephone.
Oh, shit.
Okay.
Special council meeting.
Okay, yep, no, that's perfect, so I will get an email out to you with a Zoom link for 9 AM.
So they gotta make a decision in this meeting. So maybe tomorrow we'll have another.
Yes. Sure. Understood. Yep.